Hello, everybody. My name is Mason, and today I will be talking about the two atomic bombs that were dropped on Japan, as well as whether it was right for President Truman to drop the bombs and to end the war. I believe it was essential for the U.S. military and President Truman to drop the two atomic bombs on Japan. After a 4-year war, soldiers were becoming sick and very weary of fighting. The biggest priority for Truman was to obviously end the war with as very few American casualties as possible. After the Manhattan Project was finished, Truman had a decision whether or not to drop the atomic bomb. Truman said he based his decisions purely off of military reasonings, where as us Americans believe it was because of Pearl Harbor. Although there were many deaths, Truman believes it could have saved more lives than killed. If they didn't drop the bomb, war would still have continued and the U.S. military would slowly close in on Japan's mainland. If they didn't drop the bomb, the military was planning an invasion called Operation Downfall. Operation Downfall would have began in the fall of 1945. Essentially, what would have happened is the U.S. military would have start from Japan's South Island, called Kiwashua, and essentially slowly move up to the mainland where they hoped Japan would hopefully surrender before they even hit the mainland. But of course, this never actually happened since the atomic bomb was dropped. Truman also felt that he needed to justify the spending of the Manhattan Project. The project cost nearly $2 billion, and not to use that money or not to use that bomb would be foolish spending or wasteful spending in the American eyes. Americans also believe that we still needed to deal with the Pearl Harbor bombing, where obviously we believe that was the main reason why we came in. Pearl Harbor was the biggest reason to enter the war. The U.S. and Japan had tensions for years, and the U.S. believed that Japan shouldn't be expanding into China for economic benefits. So the Japanese devised a plan, and the Japanese plan was very simple. It was to destroy the Pacific Fleet. That way, the Americans would not be able to fight back as Japan's armed forces spread across the South Pacific. On December 7th, after months of planning and practice, Japanese launched their attack. Japanese fighting planes dropped nearly 1,800 pounds of bombs on the mainland of the harbor, killing more than 2,500 men. 3 days later, Germany and Japan declared war on us. Truman said, "When you have to do with a beast, you have to treat them as a beast." On August 6, 1945, the U.S. military dropped its first bomb on Hiroshima, killing an estimated 100,000 people. Then, 3 days later, the U.S. military, on August 9th, dropped its second bomb on Nagasaki, killing nearly 70,000 civilians. August 14th, 6 days later, Japan surrenders. The next year and a half post-war was spent devising a treaty between the Allied forces. The treaty was signed in Paris in 1947. The treaty formed the Axis nations, or helped reform the Axis nations, along with figuring out payments for repairing nations. The nations that received the most repair was mainly the Soviet Union, and then smaller nations such as Greece, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and Albania. I believe the biggest thing besides the ending of the war, or the biggest thing about dropping the atomic bomb besides the end of the war, was we were able to actually just see the destruction of the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb, we first used the atomic bomb on Japan, and before that, no one actually knew what it could do. Nobody actually knew the impact it had, and I think it helped make the nations around us, whether it's allies or Axis, realize that it shouldn't be used for war again,